Yes, Mr. Borwe,
I'm present.
Mr. Slocum,
Here.
Mr. Jinks.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
All right, 100% turnout. That's great. All right. That's roll call. We'll dispense with the pledge because we're going to do it in a few minutes as the full council. And items 3 through 13 are all gifts, generous gifts from our wonderful community. Some in memory of, Joy Hostage, a former council member who died a couple months back. Long dedicated service to the 4th District by her, 12 years on the council. Nice to see some of these gifts, some of them for library, etc. Do we have any questions on any of these?
They look good to me. They look good to me.
Did that sound like a motion to approve them for the full council?
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Jinks, you would like to second?
Yep, second.
All right. Seeing there's not a lot of discussion, I would imagine, on this, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And there were no opposed because I heard all 3 ayes, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second by Mr.
Oh.
Jinks.
Sorry, yeah, second.
Okay, no problem. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Our 1 minute
Aye.
meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you, Sean, for the clarification on the dates when those contracts start for our review period.
Yeah, that was a little confusing, but I'm glad we got it sorted out. They
I
went,
thought it was going to get signed.
yeah, they went ahead and filed them both this afternoon. So
That's what she Who's coming from the Board of Ed tonight to talk about that?
I know Vin will be here. I know Jeff has Board of Ed Policy Subcommittee meeting. So I think it will just be
It's a virtual meeting. Welcome to the public. And with that, Arnett, I'll ask you to call the roll.
Mr. Borrowy? He is here. Mr. Jinks?
Here.
Ms. Nichols?
Here.
Chairman Orris? Ms. Pavano? Mr. Slocum?
Here.
Mr. Talbot?
Here.
Mr. Belliver?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
And you have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Talbot. Rob is unable to attend this evening, so I'll serve as chair for this evening and do the best I can. With that, let us rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 3 on our agenda is items for executive session. We're going to move this to the tail end of our meeting. There's no action coming out of executive session, but again, we'll hold off on that. This brings us to public communications. And tonight we have Maura Esposito here with us to give us a COVID-19 update from the Cheshire Health District. Maura, you've got the table or the floor.
Okay, so I'm going to be very honest with all of you. I didn't really prepare anything. It's been really busy, and I'm right in there with everybody else. As you all know, Cheshire is not in an isolation from the rest of the world. We've been seeing that Cheshire has been is kind of surrounded right now by a sea of red in the alert system map. I have a feeling we're going to turn red because our cases have been increasing. I did do a total from Monday. So from November 1st to November 9th, we've had 51 cases. I did not count the cases today. We've just been way too busy. I will say, looking at the numbers, our highest numbers are between 20 and 29. We've had 11 of them, 30 to 39, 10, 50 to 59-year-olds are 9. I know that Sean put my trend graph in for all of you. And as you can see, we are exceeding the highest that we've ever done since the beginning. Now, I will say that, yes, people are testing. People are absolutely testing. And so we're seeing a lot more because we didn't have those tests available to us in the spring. So we have been extreme. I have to say, honestly, Cheshire's been doing very well compared to my other 2 towns. The Cheshire restaurants have been doing really great. We've had a few still referrals coming in with complaints about social distancing, but we're pretty much addressing those within 1 or 2 days. Our salons, we've had very minimal exposures, and our salon people have been catching things very quickly. We did have 2 daycares have to go into quarantine. One was a positive child and one was a positive worker. We do have currently a group home where it is in lockdown. The worker is turned up positive. In general, when we are interviewing the cases, right now we are finding there have been a lot of Halloween gatherings. A lot of 18 to 25-year-olds are becoming positive. They're hanging out, going out of town. They're still going up into bars and hanging out in Waterbury and coming back. We are also starting to see an increase in our healthcare workers, which has us very nervous. I think that we all got a little loose, and we're now suffering from that, including our healthcare workers. We are working very closely with Elam Park right now because they did have an exposure in their nursing small nursing staff on the independent side. So Chesbricott is actually, we're in the midst of getting some of our MRC nurses tested so that they can go over and assist them if needed. It's been a real, the schools have been very busy, and it's been sporadic. Today, I'm trying to think of staying in Cheshire, my mind in Cheshire. We've had teachers, we've had students. A lot of it is really what I'm seeing is spread in the family. People are, it's really showing up in the workplace. So please be vigilant on that. So people that you're going into stores, there's probably someone in there working that's probably positive. So again, keep your masks on, use your sanitizer, keep as far, your 6 feet distance as far as possible to keep yourself safe. So what happens is people are in the work are coming home, and again, we are seeing it going like wildfire once it gets into the home community. The range of symptoms, it's odd again. It's going from sniffles to a sore throat to full-fledged. It seems like it starts, most of them start with a small little sniffle. About 2 days later, then they get whammed, and then they're really knocked out. Trouble breathing. We do have a few people in the district that are in the hospital right now at St. Mary's, so we're watching them. We are seeing trickling into the schools. I'm sure Vinny is on here too. He probably can, I can't even keep them straight anymore. We did have 2 instances today at Highland. One of those was associated, and we think that probably it was a relationship to a healthcare worker. The other one, we don't know. We've had some small instances at Doolittle. I don't think any of the schools are, all of them have something little going on. We're seeing it in our community in the town. Even my office has a person out because she came in close contact. So it is all around us. It's keeping us very busy. I put out today the Wolcott boys soccer team, a Cheshire Cheshire Boy Scout group, a Little League, or excuse me, a Pee Wee hockey team in Cheshire. We've got them left and right, just keeping us extremely busy. We are we took in over 60 cases this weekend. Last night there was over 37 cases. We're trying to divvy it out amongst the staff, but remember that I'm still an operating staff. My department is still operating. People are still building houses, and restaurants are still operating. So we're trying our best. But in the meantime, we're really trying to ram up for vaccinations. I'm sure many of you heard last night on the news, they were talking about Pfizer. That is a high, an ultra low vaccine that none of the local health departments carry. You will only see those kind of refrigerators in your teaching colleges, hospitals, or some of the hospitals. Now, the amount that they're doing, that dosage will most likely be going to all the healthcare. Right now, again, the local health department is going to be gearing up to be vaccinating our critical workforce, our town government, our fire, our police, our health department, our medical reserve corps. There is discussion because a lot of the long-term care facilities were asked by the governor to get their vaccinations from CVS or Rite Aid. And a lot of the long-term care facilities said they don't want to do that because they trust their health departments. So now they're looking to us as seeing if we have the capacity. Chesbricott is about so close to being what's called a Connecticut vaccine program and the Connecticut COVID vaccine program provider. What this entailed was that I had to hire a medical director. So Sean, you will be happy I did get one, but it did come with a cost. which we'll deal with when the time comes. We are in the midst of hiring a nurse because we needed to have that for the vaccinations. We're ready to do the vaccinations. We're about an inch, we're almost right there, but we're prepping to do it. I think I've told you before, we may have to partner with some of our towns of Meriden and Wallingford because we figure that, we're going to be doing these in the wintertime in crummy weather, cold weather, and it has to be outside. So how many volunteers are you going to have that wants to do this week after week after week? So I'm working with the Meriden and Wallingford health departments trying to come up with a strategy. I think that's about it, unless I really just wanted to field your questions because I figured that there's probably more questions. I know our phone is 4 deep all day long from all types of businesses. I want to say that everyone is calling us to give them guidance. I have a positive worker, I have this, I have that. And we are taking the time and walking all of them through that. So I'm hoping that we're doing an okay job informing everybody. I know I don't get back as quick as I can to some of you, but I hope that you understand.
Thank you, Maura. Are there any members of the council that have specific questions? Don, I'll recognize you. I can't see everybody, so when Don is done, if you're not on my screen, you better speak up with your name.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Thanks, Maura, for that update. Quick question: in about 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot of kids coming home from college for Thanksgiving and things like that. What are your recommendations for? I mean, I know some schools are giving vaccines, but some aren't. And how far in advance should they be getting a vaccine before they come home? Because I'm fearful that there's going to be another uptick come right after Thanksgiving as well.
Right now, they shouldn't be getting a vaccination yet.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean a vaccination. I meant the testing.
Oh, they're getting tested.
Yeah, tested. Yeah, I'm sorry, wrong word. But testing. Yeah.
Okay, so this is my advice, and I am going to be like you. I'm going to have a college kid coming home. So the big thing is that right now the governor is saying families 10 people, because what we have seen for the last 3 weeks is there is a large, when people get together and you don't know where everyone has been. And the problem is that when you're infectious, you have no signs or symptoms. You are just showing up at the kitchen table. You're happy to see your friends. Your masks are off. You're eating and your germs are going everywhere. So it's going to be just being vigilant. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's the safest thing you can do. What I would be doing is really making sure that when your child comes home, everybody, we just got to really start washing our hands again. Coming in, you go out, wash your hands again, wear your mask, try to stay 6 feet away. I know that there's going to be a lot of concerns because we're seeing it right now with Halloween. And that was just a 1 day snippet with these college kids coming home. And we are still seeing, in the news that they are still getting it at that age group. So again, it's about keeping that vigilant it's not about us. It's about those people that are vulnerable. They don't have the they're immunocompromised. They don't have the ability to fight this. And there is no treatment right now. So if you get this virus, it is totally up to your body to fight it. And there are people out there that if they get it, they cannot fight it. So you're starting to see, which I'm not surprised from previous information, is that our cases have been rising and right behind it, the death rates are starting to go up. So I've been watching those pretty closely. I know we've spoken to a couple people that are in the hospital. They're having a hard time. But we're in a better place than we were in April. So.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Maura, I do have one question, and it sort of goes to your statement that there's no therapeutics that are generally available.
Right.
Um, that's a complete fact. There is nothing they can do in a hospital situation or at home to alleviate anybody's symptoms. That,
Well, there are things to help symptoms, but there's not a magic treatment pill.
no,
Like, you
and
can't
that I
take a
completely
pill and-
understand. But obviously, managing people's health is important in these situations, and that really is the heart of my question. Because I've heard there are some. I just didn't know what hospitals are doing when they see people. What are they doing?
So what I can tell you is most of the doctors, when they find out that you're positive with COVID, they're going to be ramping you up with vitamin C, going and getting lots of zinc in you. A lot of the doctors will put you on Tylenol just to try to like ease some of the pain. They're ramping your body up as best they can, and hope, because it is about the breathing. And they are telling most people that if you're starting to have the difficult breathing, that's when you're coming into the hospital, because just like in the March, what we saw was that people were getting low oxygen counts before they started showing bad signs. So that's what the doctors are looking for right now.
Okay. And as a follow on to that, it has more to do with the flu. I understand the incidence of flu is down, but I also know that the most vulnerable, 65 and older, don't have really convenient access or ready access to the flu vaccine that's recommended for them. I forget what they call that. It's just
Yeah, the senior dose.
it's a better, the senior dose. There you go. I
Senior
should
dose.
remember that. Right.
So-
So given that reality, I mean, I got a shot yesterday for just the standard dose. Is that going to remain pretty much the situation?
Oh, well, I don't know. I can't predict that, but I can tell you that we were kind of thinking the fact that people were going to be staying home more, washing their hands more. We're doing the same recommendations that we would do for the flu, and
Mhm.
hoping that you're going to probably have less of that. We have seen one or two flu cases, but it is most of the people that are going to the doctor right now with these very sniffles, runny nose, sore throat, are usually COVID related. Now, I can tell you that when we did our flu shots, we did not have the senior dose, but we had a really excellent flu block, which is made right here in Meriden. And it's a 4 quadrivalent, great vaccine. It's one that I would highly recommend, and it's always the one that I pursue to get. So I
Okay.
still think it's out there. You can still get them, but you're absolutely right. People have known about, 5 years ago, we all went and got a flu shot. We didn't realize that there were a multitude of different types of flu shots. So that's a learning curve. And so next year, when we do our flu clinics, we will make sure that the senior dose is available.
Okay. And as a final statement, I guess, when I was getting my flu shot at CVS yesterday, the technician who took care of that indicated that they're going to be training and ramping up for the COVID vaccine as well. So in the general marketplace, you won't necessarily have to rely on your health district for all of
Right.
this, which is going to be
So-
huge, obviously.
Yeah, there's 2 phases, and actually there's 3 phases now. We have phase 1 and phase 2, and then one point B or something like that. So 1 is your hospitals, your critical workforces, your fire, your police. 1.B is going to be your teachers. And then phase 2 is going to be the general public. And we know that there's just no way my little health department's going to be able to do that. I
Right.
mean, we're good, but we're not that good. But so they are looking at multiple pharmacies to be able to do that, because they really want to flood the market so that everybody can have an opportunity to get it.
Right. Okay.
Jim, can I ask a
Anything
quick
else?
question?
Oh, please, Jim, go ahead.
Hey, Marat, it's Jim Jenks. So I don't mean this as a criticism of your department by any means. You guys are working really, really hard and pretty much overwhelmed and underfunded, and we all know that. one frustration I've heard from people in the community is that they see the statistics that we're putting out, town councils put out, or Sean puts out, or you put out, but there's very little sort of context for them to understand where all those cases are coming from. I think you probably have answered this question before, but if you could kind of remind us as to sort of what you can provide to the public when you put those numbers out, and if you can't, then kind of explain that too. That'd be great.
Sure. So, just so you know, like at the beginning, the media was very interested in getting all our data. That's really kind of died down. But I do put it on the community forum. I put it on our Chespercott Facebook page. And two of the main things that I try to put out is one, the trends. Where have those positive cases? And my trends are not a total number. They are actually, and I believe you have the handout in front of you in your packet. Those are the cases by month. Those are the actually positive cases. Those are people that have gone to the hospital, gone to their doctors, gone to the CVS drive-through, and gotten their test. When I put out the big graph, those are the total numbers of the cases since the beginning, because I have to keep track of all of that. So what I've been trying to do to help people is break it down by month and by age, so that people can understand what age groups it's more affecting, or who is testing and getting more positive cases. Is it absolutely 100%? No, we know that nothing's going to be 100%. There's been a lot of question because my numbers may be different than what the governor is giving. And what we learned is that I take this week and last week. The governor takes last week and the week before. So that's why I'm like, you should be in red, but we're orange, because I'm giving you the most up-to-date numbers. I'm literally working very hard so you are getting live, real data, because that's what you need. You don't want to know what 2 weeks ago, what is happening right now. So I did just like I did before. I have my little cases here, and we've had a lot with 51 cases. We've had a few cases. I just wanted to give some examples of how these people, where they think their exposure was. I do have people that thought they had pink eye and got sick and had COVID. I have people that are owners of restaurants. I have workers for the town. I have people working at Yale. I've got people that have traveled from out of the state, taken their negative, their test 72 hours before coming in. But once they arrive, they start showing symptoms. I've got a lot of people that are food workers, that you're seeing that all around. I've got a lot of, my husband is ill. My brother has it. I was with my family. I was in a bar. My grandson, I saw my grandson and he was positive. So does that help answer your question?
I think so. I mean, I think what people are seeing when they see the numbers, and they're not really necessarily seeing, where the cases and new cases are coming from exactly. They're thinking, are they coming from the school? Are they coming from youth sports? Are they coming from work? I think they're looking for just more of a general idea.
Okay.
So it sounds like they're coming. Obviously, it's a range of. I mean, it could be it is everywhere, and it could be anywhere, kind of thing. So
it is.
And so I understand that, but if there's, I guess if there's some way to create some better context, and I don't,
Okay.
I know how hard you guys are working already. So.
Well, I can absolutely tell you this: it's not being spread in the schools. The schools, I've been in them. The kids are amazing when they are in the schools. And I applaud all of the principals and the nurses and the superintendent for being vigilant. It really amazes me when I walk through there and they're doing their mask breaks and they're all 6 feet apart. I mean, that is why you're not seeing the spread in the school, because they're doing the social distancing as we asked. So it is not spreading in the school. What we are finding, though, is it is coming from the house and getting into the school that way because it comes to the child.
Mhm.
Sports, what we're finding is that the sports team, again, we have a lot of, I mean, I'm not a sports person, but what we're learning is a lot of it starts with the fact of parents haven't seen each other and they show up at the practices or whatever, and they're sitting over and they're talking to their friend who they haven't seen for a while, and they're not practicing social distancing. And that is how it is spreading, because then they bring it back into the house and then the kid gets it. And then the kid was on the ice or he was on the field. It was during his infectious period. So then we have to determine who were the close contacts. And in most of those sports, we're putting the whole team out because we can't determine who it is based upon just how they play. So I can adamantly tell you about that. It is very highly spread throughout our community in the families. And that is how it's getting down into the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Tim,
Thank you.
I don't-
Yes, Sylvia.
belabor this for any longer. You worked really hard and you've given us some great information, but I do have a question because I have a grandson who is tested every Tuesday at college.
Mhm.
And I suspect there are other people in the community that are getting frequent tests. Every
Mhm.
time he gets tested, does that count as a new test? So the numbers that we're getting that say there are X number of thousands of people getting tests, is that 1/3 of those because all those 1,000 people have gotten 3 tests to test negative? How does that
Sylvia, I'll
work?
have to get back to you because I do know there is a lot. You're getting your correction officers, you're getting your long-term cares,
Right.
you're getting all those that are doing frequent weekly tests. I don't think they're pulling those out. I believe the colleges were being pulled out of that big number. So they didn't inflate it because if we did that, we would be huge.
Yes, well, that's what I'm thinking. And now he's coming home from college where he was in another state being tested. He comes here and he gets tested here. College has records,
Yep.
but he continues to do that weekly testing here. That inflates the numbers. So that's my question is how do you determine
Well,
again
I can
that
tell
amount
you,
of people who've been tested and the amount that are testing positive?
yeah, I can tell you the data I give you is not college kids. Yes, there's college kids in there, but it's when they come back to our community.
Okay.
So I don't want to know about our Cheshire residents that live in Florida, go to college in Florida. They're a Florida issue. So my numbers are just our community.
Okay.
But I would say that honestly, those big numbers have been pulled out of that big giant number the governor gives us.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And if there's nothing further, Maura, we'll let you enjoy your
Okay.
evening peace. And thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, everybody. And if you ever have any questions, just feel free to, throw me an email.
Terrific.
Okay.
Okay, with that, Arnett, I'll ask if we have any public comments that you're aware of.
We do not at this point have any comments from the public that have come in.
Thank you. Well, with that, I'll move us on to number 5, which is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of October 13 and the special meeting of October 27. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
We have
It doesn't-
Don Walsh, and I didn't hear who the second was from, but
Well, Dave Veliver.
thank you, Dave. We have any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, which we now come to the consent calendar. Mr. Bowery.
Mr. Chairman, we'll see if my internet is strong enough at the moment. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 111020-1, the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nichols. All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously of those present. There are no items removed from consent, and there is no old business. This brings us to new business. First, under new business is discussion of proposals for legislative recommendations. Sean, I know this was a topic of the planning committee. At that juncture in our meeting, we didn't really hear any. You were going to be perhaps cobbling some together for us to consider. Do you have that type of report right now?
I have a draft of it, Tim. I think the planning committee was going to review it first, so it's really up to you how you'd like to handle it. I could certainly share the screen and kind of walk through some of them, but I think if you'd rather kind of first do that through planning,
I think I'd rather do it through planning, and then we can distribute it to the council in general. I think that's fine. So with that, we'll put that on the live radar for our next meeting, and move on to the status regarding the RFP that was put out for town attorney. And my report on that is simply that I've instructed staff to set up some interviews for the prospects that have, expressed interest, and for the full council. And I would imagine within the coming weeks, we will have a schedule. We'll try and make it a nice, neat schedule where we can do it whatever works to most of our liking. And we're going to count on staff to put that all together. I don't know if they have a report, but this was how we left it at our last planning meeting. So we're waiting from Sean and Arnett on that. And I presume we'll hear on that in a timely fashion. Of course, there's a lot of connecting parts in that. Okay, so with that, we're going to go on to a discussion and possible action regarding the waiver of bid and award of sludge disposal contract. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Slocum. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 111020-2. Be it resolved that the town council approves a waiver of bid for sludge removal services and authorizes the successor contract with Synagro.
Okay, we have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Discussion, Mr. Walsh, you have it, and maybe with the backup from staff?
I've learned quite a bit about sludge over the last few days, that more than I really care to know about. But this company has been with us since 2011. There aren't a lot of companies who remove sludge. Back in 2015, we put it out an RFP and only had one proposer. But this, although they were not the lowest price, they were the best fit for the town. So, this agreement will end on at the end of 2020 this year. So they're proposing a 3-year contract with a 5% increase in year one, and a CPI increases in the out years. Typically between $120,000 and $140,000 annually is what we pay for sludge removal.
And Don, as Dave, just quick question. This is the, could you explain what the sludge is?
Sure. I knew somebody would ask that.
I know what it is, but I figure anybody who's watching is like, what do you mean we're removing sludge?
It's basically the stuff, the solids and things over at the wastewater treatment plant.
Keep it clean.
Yeah, I'm trying the best I can. But yeah, it's the weight. It's the solids and things that need to get removed from the wastewater treatment plant. I'll leave it at that. It's I think people could figure out what that kind of stuff is. But and there aren't a lot of people out there who want to do that. But Synagro has been a very good partner with us for the past 9 years.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. That was an excellent report. I don't know if there's any other conversation to take place on this. It is a bid waiver. Sounds like a good cause, and I would understand it's also gone from a 5-year to a 3-year contract. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we'll be revisiting this sooner than later. With that, if there's no further comment from staff or my colleagues, I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that it passed unanimously of those present. Okay, this moves us along to discussion and possible approval for authorization to apply for a municipal brownfields grant for ball and socket arts. Mr. Walsh.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 111020-3. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for a municipal brownfields grant on behalf of the ball and socket arts remediation of the former ball and socket property.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Talbot. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Discussion?
This was basically they already did part of the remediation at ball and socket. This is to continue it and hopefully get this grant. They had applied. They had submitted a partial application, which they didn't need our approval on earlier, and found out that they have a chance to get this grant, so they have to fill out a full application on it. So hopefully this will this grant will come and it will hopefully begin the process of getting that building up and running and usable in the near future.
And the dollar amount on that grant application, the potential is how many dollars?
So there's no, I can jump in there.
Yeah.
This is, again, just an authorization to apply. We don't have the numbers yet. They just got the pre-application approval. So really, this is a preliminary step. But we can, and again, we expect those numbers will be codified in the next couple of months before officially submitting the application. So again, from the council standpoint, we can get approval tonight to move forward, assuming there's general consensus to do so, and certainly continue to inform the council or seek additional approval if you would like us to come back when the dollar amount has been determined.
The important piece of this, Sean, is that we basically are administrators for a grant application and distribution of proceeds so that there's a municipal thing behind this, but it's really all in the hands and operation of the ball and socket arts.
That's correct. Yeah, there's no town dollars at risk, so to speak. This is the Brownfields Grant Program, and municipalities have to be the applicant. And in this case, it's on behalf of the operators there of the ball and socket facility.
Right. And we certainly all wish them well. Any other comments or questions from colleagues? Comments from staff? Okay, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those present. Okay. With that, we are into the weeds. Number E, letter E, discussion and possible action regarding Cheshire Public Schools Administrative Personnel Collective Bargaining Agreement. Forgive me for disappearing. I had to answer a question on my iPad. Okay. With that, I didn't mean to lead in with the weeds having anything to do with the administrative staff. I thought we were getting into the conversation about tax appeals. My apologies. So the discussion on this matter has to do with the administrators, and we're not prepared to take any action tonight, Vin. We'd like to cobble this together with the teachers one at a future meeting, but I would like to hear you out since you were invited. If you can just speak to this agreement in general. The council has no intention of taking any action this evening. So you have the floor, my friend.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. The matter that's on the council's agenda tonight is the successor agreement for the Cheshire administrative personnel. And I'd like to give just a little bit of background for the council members. I know we have some new council members that may not have seen a certified contract come across in the last couple of years. So there are 2 bargaining units out of 5 here at the schools that are certified by the Department of Education. That's our teachers and our administrators. The administrators are certified by the Department of Education. And generally speaking, these are the principals, the assistant principals, the director of pupil personnel services, a pupil personnel supervisor. It's not a large group. It's 18 administrators in total. This does not include the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, or myself. Again, it's this core group that's considered administrative personnel by the State Department of Education. Unlike most municipal contracts, the two certified bargaining units, they are governed by the Teacher Negotiation Act, and they set out under the Teacher Negotiation Act very strict guidelines for the negotiation of a contract. And the goal is that the new contract has to be settled before the old contract expires. So this particular contract does expire June 30th of 2021. And there's a whole series of provisions which I'm not going to get into, but the important thing is it's not like our other municipal contracts that are governed by the Municipal Employees Relations Act, which you can continue to negotiate those contracts well past the contract termination date. These contracts have to be settled. So with that, there are 18 administrators. The total value of the contract, and this has been laid out in the memorandum that the town council members should have all received, but the value of the contract in total is about $2.7 million per year. The Board of Education at their meeting on October 15th unanimously approved this contract, and it's been forwarded to the town council and town clerk in accordance with the law. The council can, when they're ready, decide to approve, reject, or not act on the contract. And if they don't act in 30 days, the contract is in effect. So those are the council's, potential actions. In terms of what's been negotiated on the wage side, and I know there's a lot of numbers on the page that we presented, but I will just highlight that the wage increases, year one is 1.75% all in. So that would include 1.3% general wage increase and 0.45% for step. This contract has 5 steps. Most of the administrators are already at the top step, so they're in year 6 or beyond. In fact, of the 18 administrators, 14 are currently at the top step, and by the 3-year end of the contract, 17 of 18 will be at their top step. So the fact is that of the 1.75%, the 14 of the administrators will get the 1.3% GWI. The second year of the contract is 2.5% all in, 2.2% general wage increase, and 0.3% for step. And year 3 is 2.65% all in, 2.58% general wage, and 0.07% step. The reason the step decreases each year is because there are less people that are eligible for a step. If you take the total value of the contract all in, it's a 6.9% increase over the 3 years. That's an average of 2.3% per year. And we compared that to the settlements that have been reached so far of other administrator contracts. So we're at 6.9%. The average of the contracts that have been settled are 7.08%. We're at 2.3% average per year. The average settlement is about 2.36% per year. So this contract is in line with the other administrator contracts that have, been settled so far this year. And there's about a dozen. And I know Mr. Walsh made a request by email to Mr. Kimball for some detailed information along the lines of what I've just presented. And we will be, sending that over to the council for their review. On the medical benefit side, the administrators pay 11% for their co-share for the HSA plan, which is the core plan. That will increase. Actually, in year 1, it stays at 11%. Year 2, the co-share goes to 12.5%. Year 3, it goes to 14%. And the rough value of the administrators paying a higher co-share in year 2 is about $4,000. So that's saved from the Board of Ed budget and paid by the administrators. And then in year 3, it's about $3,000 saved for the Board of Ed. That's picked up by the administrators. 2 other things that I want to mention on medical benefits. One is that because the HSA is the core plan, we do allow the employees in this group, like all our other groups, to buy up if they want to keep the PPO plan or the HMO plan. So it's cost neutral to the board if they pay up for the higher plan. In year 2 of this contract, though, the administrators have agreed to just drop the PPO and HMO plans as options for, for the group going forward. So by 2023, the HSA will be the only plan available for the administrators. Again, no cost impact to us, but there is a benefit for the administrators to take advantage of the HSA. And so at a high level, that's the financial piece of this. There were some minor contract language changes having to do with really mostly legal ramifications of the Janus ruling. So some of that language had to be adjusted. And there was a minor language change having to do with professional growth that the administrators need to provide evidence that any online programs that they take, which are quite common these days, are from a properly accredited college or university, and that's always subject to approval in advance by the superintendent. So that's a high-level overview of the contract. This contract, was negotiated certainly in good faith. Our administrators, I will add, did agree to, a reasonable wage settlement here. I think they understand the financial circumstances that the town is in, and I will tell you that they are extremely dedicated. If you, look at what we've gone through with COVID just the past, it's not quite a year, even though it feels like 10 years, but the administrators, worked really aggressively, during the, March through June period when we had to go remote. Worked really hard over the summer to get us ready for the new school year. And in the new school year, all things considered, I know Maura Esposito was on with us, we have only had one day where we put Highland School into remote learning. We've been able to manage through, some, difficulties in terms of contact tracing when we did have positives. Again, there's not a lot of spread within the school, but we've been aggressive, and the principals are really at the center of managing through, our caseload, having to do with people that are quarantined, due to COVID, and really haven't skipped a beat as, from an educational point of view. So I think this is a reasonable contract. Certainly the Board of Ed approved it unanimously, and the superintendent, endorses the approval of this contract. And I forgot to tell everyone that Dr. Solon isn't with us on this call today because he is in the Board of Ed Policy Committee meeting. So there was a conflict. So he sent me in to present this to the town council.
Well, you did a great job. Do any of my colleagues have questions for Vin?
Yes, I do. Vin, this is Sandy. I'm just wanted to go over the HSA. It looks to me like in year 2 and 3 that we had a savings of about 7,000. Is that correct?
Correct. If you combine years 2 and 3 together, we saved 7,000, and that's a cost shift. It's because the administrators are paying 12.5%,
Right.
and then 14% in years 2 and 3. They're paying more, and the Board of Ed budget is paying less for the purchase of their benefits, essentially.
Yeah, thank you, Vin.
Anyone else?
Mr. Vice Chair.
Oh, yes, Mr. Talbot.
Thank you. Mr. Massiano, thanks for providing this. I'm looking over the memo that Dr. Solon sent, and probably a question more not from a new council member, but from a forgetful old council member. Was the annuity always part of the administrator's contract?
Yes. So the annuity. Thank you, Mr. Talbot, because I didn't really explain that. The annuity has been a part of the administrator's contract for many years, certainly before I was here. Their contribution made by the Board of Ed is $5,000 per year. effective with this contract, it goes up to $6,000 per year. And it stays at 6,000 going forward. So, one of the reasons that it was negotiated that way is, as opposed to salary, if the annuity contribution is increased $1,000, there's no compounding effect as a result of the wage increase. But that is included in the dollars that we presented in the memorandum.
The of the 18 members, I think you said it and I missed it. How many of them are at full step at this point, or at step 5?
14 are at
Right.
top step already, and by the time we get to year 3, there'll be 17 out of 18 at top step.
And then the bullet that Dr. Solon provided under financial summary to BOE budget, does the numbers, the year 1, 2, and 3 numbers, does that include both the step and the annuity increase, or is that just WGI?
That's just
GWI.
yeah, that's just the wage component. So it's the general wage increase plus step, and so $17,600 would have to be added to each of those to account for the annuity, for the increase in the annuity.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, any other, Don? Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you, Mr. Masciano. And I appreciate you getting that information to us, being one of the newbies. I just try to get as much information as I possibly can to make an educated decision on what's the best way to go with this. One of the questions I had with the way that learning has changed over the past 7 or 8 months, I noticed in the teacher's contract that we had seen, some additions have been put in there. I didn't see a lot with the admins, but are there going to be some changes that we're going to be requesting for them because of more online learning?
No, I mean, there's nothing from a contractual point of view, if that's your question. Certainly,
Right.
What they're dealing with right now, and which we hope passes, but I guess from a very high perspective right now, one of the things that we are dealing with when a teacher in particular is in quarantine is the teacher is remote, so that they can keep teaching. We have to have someone in the classroom with the students. So, they're juggling, people in quarantine right now, which is a new phenomenon. Outside of that, making sure that we're doing things like reducing the furniture and equipment in the classroom so that we can maximize social distancing, managing the tents that we've added in each of the schools to make sure that we are separating students, and those tents will stay up till November 20th. And then those principals have to figure out, how do we continue to provide, meal service socially distant to the greatest extent possible. So they're dealing with a bunch of odd circumstances that they've never had to deal with before, but it's not affecting the contract, it's affecting their day-to-day operation of the school.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what I look at. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of these, along with the teachers, are putting in more hours than they have normally done because of the differences that they have to administrate towards, plus the teachers, what they have to do. So I wasn't sure if, I mean, I give the admins and the teachers a lot of credit for what they're dealing with, because I don't know if I would be able to handle all the changes that they have had, they've seen. And I give you and Dr. Sullivan a lot of credit for what you have done over these past 8 months to keep the kids in school and keep them learning, which is the most important thing. So thank you for that.
No, thank you for the acknowledgement. We're pretty adaptable in the schools, and I have to tell you that I've been really impressed by how well everyone has been dealing with the changes overall, because some of the things that we're doing, if you would have told me a year ago that we're going to have students remote, that we're going to be, serving school lunch, differently than the way we have for the last, many, many years, I would have said, no, that's not going to work. But, we found that, we can work remotely, that we can make it better. We're certainly doing better from an education and a management perspective, starting from September through November than we did, from March to June. So, we've made improvements and we're continuing to do so. But I will say, I do hope that we don't have to do this next year as well. I know we're going to have to do that the rest of this school year.
Any other colleagues, questions before I advance a few?
Tim, it's Dave.
Okay, Dave, go ahead, Dave Veliber.
Question. Thank you. Then if you could just walk me through this again, and I apologize, maybe I'm just not understanding. With the, what exactly is the $6,000 annuity? Could you explain that a little bit? That's an add-on to their salary? Is that what it is? Or how does that work?
It's basically a contribution made for their retirement into a, we call it an annuity. It's a 403B contract. So
Okay.
as I responded to Mr. Talbot, their contribution annually was $5,000.
Yep.
And it's going up with this contract to $6,000 a year. So it's a retirement plan that's set up for the administrators. Fairly common across Connecticut for administrators to have an annuity contract as part of their overall bargaining unit agreement.
All right. So in theory, this is going up $1,000 per administrator per year, correct?
Well,
Well,
it's a one-time, it's increasing from 5,000 to 6,000.
6,000.
Paying at 6,000.
Right. So, but when we're factoring that in, up until this point, we've been kicking in 5,000. Now it's going to, for the next 3 years, it's now going to be 6,000.
Correct.
Okay. So
Correct. And that's reflected in the total dollar amount of that column on the memo that says with annuity, so
yeah, right.
the first year of the contract, including the annuity, it's $2,702,957 is the total compensation paid.
Right. So then, as Councilwoman Pavano mentioned, in the financial summary in year 2, it says $65,221, but with their additional contribution going up to 12.5, it's really only $61,221 because in theory, we'd be paying $4,000 less. They'd be kicking in more money as far as total compensation for them, right? Or in theory, it's still $65,000 that we're paying them, but essentially part of the cost is also being borne by them for additional $4,000 because they're increasing their contribution.
Yeah, I know it's a little confusing the way we laid it out on this sheet, but the 44,672, the 65,221, 71,068, that's just salary
Increases.
component. So general wage increase plus step. It does not include the annuity in that column.
Right, but what I'm talking about, but they are also now increasing their medical benefit contribution, so that in years 2 and 3. So in theory, although the wage goes up, they're also contributing more to the medical contribution. So there's a little bit of a balance there.
I apologize. Yes, you're correct. So the 65,221 minus 4,000, that's the net wage less the
increase. Okay.
contribution.
Right. Okay. So that okay. I just wanted to make sure. So I wasn't sure that. I just wanted to clarify because I think Sandy had asked that question earlier. I just wanted to clarify. So it's not 65,221 is just the salary and wage increase, and then there's a deduction in years 2 and 3 that would come off the 65,000 and the 71,000.
Correct.
As far as total compensation. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else before I go? Okay, Vin, I just had a question or two. You may not be able to answer at this sitting, but we're coming off, your group is coming off, that you're representing is coming off a 3-year contract. Is that correct? Or is it a 4-year?
No, they had a 3 prior to this.
They had a 3 prior. And were there 18 members through those 3 years? There's been no changes in the numbers in that group?
You know, it hasn't increased certainly, Tim. It might be down one actually.
Mhm.
I'd have to go double check that, but
Okay, just curious.
yeah.
And then my final question, this is probably something you got to go back and get back to us on. In those 3 prior years, could you tell us what their wage increases were negotiated in those 3 prior years? In other
Is it
words, year
okay?
1, 2, and 3 of the prior year contracts, what those increases were.
It's 2.25, 2.25, 2.25.
2.25. That's why you remembered that so well,
Mhm.
because I can even remember that. Okay.
Yeah, so that was 6.75. This contract is 6.9.
Right. Basically, you just made the math a little easier for this current year when you get right down to it.
Okay.
Whether it was thoughtful or not, that's sort of how it works out, I guess. Okay, I didn't have anything for that, so I guess I don't have to get a memo. You had that all in your hands. That's terrific, Ben. Thank you for that. I guess we can move on to the real weeds.
Thank
And maybe at this time, guys, and before you go off, Vin, as I mentioned before you actually started talking about this specific contract, we did receive the teacher's contract, which is also a 4-year contract, so that's a little different. There's an awful lot to that that needs to be digested by the council members, but we do want to be able to get back with both you and Jeff as a council to get the rundown of the contract and the particulars in particular. And we want to set a schedule for that. And I know we have to act on this within 30 days, which means we could do it after Thanksgiving, but we still have to get this resolved. I believe, Sean, you said by the 10th of November, the 11th of November, I mean, of
10th
December.
Of December.
December. Right. So time marches on quickly, particularly as you get into the holidays and things like that. So we really could be looking at next week or the first week after Thanksgiving. And do you want to get back to us on that as to availability and how we could work this out?
Well, we'll make ourselves available. I'll talk to Sean,
Mhm.
Jeff, and pick some times. I assume we want to try and do something, one evening
Yes.
next week.
I think next week would be timely. Do my colleagues agree that we could probably likely handle next week comfortably?
Sure.
Okay, so perhaps if we targeted Tuesday, that might work. I don't know what other meeting cycles are like, but
School modernization is Wednesday, so that's not a good night, but other than that, we're good.
okay. So
I'm-
perhaps Tuesday could be a good night then.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's
there any-
look.
Mr. Vice
Look-
Chair, is there any
Yes.
consideration to doing it as part of the second meeting of November?
There certainly could be. I wouldn't object to that. I just didn't know if sooner was better because there may be more questions out of that meeting that could be resolved by another meeting without taking action up until that point. That's sort of why I thought early could be helpful.
Okay,
I don't know if that's a good answer for you, Peter, but that's sort of the way I was thinking.
that's fine.
Okay.
Is the second meeting the 24th? Yeah. I mean, my calendar, I could do either the 17th or the 24th. So we'll coordinate that with Sean.
Yeah, I think that's fine because you guys get that coordinated and share it with council, and we can take it from there. I'm sure we'll be able to get a quick answer back to everybody. Okay.
Thanks,
Will do.
Thank you very much, Vin.
All right. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Okay. I just have to unbury my agenda. Okay,
Good
we
night.
are
Thank you.
now at E, which is the discussion, F, which is the discussion and possible approval of a tax appeal stipulated agreement with 905 South Main Street LLC and possible executive session. We had this opportunity the last time we had met as a group on a tax appeal, and I think we agreed we didn't have to do this in executive session unless some of my colleagues think we would be more comforted going into executive session before we make motions on these and move them. Any thoughts on that subject? Want to be fair. Okay, so we're not going to go to executive session. We're just going to bear these down and take them one at a time. So we're on F, Dave. If I could ask you, Mr. Bowery,
Okay.
to advance that motion.
Hopefully my internet is coming in strong enough, Mr. Chairman. The next four motions are for two different owners of properties, two for each. They happen to be connected properties, same owners, CVS on South Main Street and Stop and Shop. First one is, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 111020-5. We can ask for a second for that.
Okay, we heard a motion. Mine was a little muffled, but I read it anyway. So is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Discussion. I don't know if you want to lead on this. Staff, do you have anyone to lead? Who was involved in this? Was it Jim? Jim Jascott?
Yeah, we have Jim Jascott here.
Yeah, Jim, why don't you
I was gonna say that-
run the staff lead on this one, please?
Sure, there were for this first stipulation, there were two parcels with this particular entity. So I did summarize in your packet the total tax exposure, and it's at the end of the second stipulation. But it basically shows a tax cost of $11,744 per year for the next several years. And that summarizes the tax effect of both parcels.
Okay.
I have a question, if you don't mind, Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead, Don.
Because I noticed because we'll go into the next one for CVS as well, but on this one, which was originally the original full value was 1.525 million, and then the new value is 1.1 million, which is like a 29% decrease. I mean, I understand, smaller, a lot of times it could be a few percentage, but is that an unusual amount of decrease, like almost a third for that plot? And what was the reasoning for that?
Yeah, I don't think it's unusual. I think, we probably come in when we value these on the high side, knowing that a lot of these are going to come back and get pursued in a settlement. So I don't think that's all that uncommon. The tax loss, I think overall is not that significant considering. And I have to admit that it's the same companies. They're some of our larger taxpayers. It's almost like every time we have a revaluation, they're going to push this to a court appeals. We reiterate that, we do have professionals involved here with these evaluations, kind of walking us through the process, the whole step of the way. So I feel comfortable that what we did settle on is probably the most reasonable thing we're going to get under the circumstances.
Was one equipment and one property, or
no? One was a parking lot.
Okay.
And the other was the bigger one was the whole plaza, so to speak, not just CVS, okay, but adjacent property as well.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Any other global type questions on these three motions? Mr. Talbot, did you say? Anyone have a question?
I would just note as a further answer to Councilman Walsh's question that
Dave, you're stretching the Band-Aid.
I really look at the two pieces together because it is total evaluation. Maybe that'll help a little bit. I look at the two motions together and say that it's less than 4% total decrease in value. And if you look at what our cost for special counsel, for regular counsel, and for experts to come in, I think we're really not losing any money as a town.
Great.
Yeah, that seems to make sense. Well, are there any other questions? Because we really do have to go with these motions one at a time. Are we prepared to vote on the motion that was read by Mr. Bowery?
We're just doing motion 5, right?
We're doing motion 5. We did sort of entangle the whole group as a topic, but we're still going to vote on each motion one at a time.
Was there a second on that motion? Oh, was that Sylvia, right?
I seconded it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's
Sorry.
okay, Mr. Veliver. That's okay. So with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously of those present. Okay, Mr. Bowery, the next motion,
Mr.
please.
Chairman, the companion motion, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 111020-6.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's on the table. I think we have discussed it, but in case someone had a second thought, I'll listen to it. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those present. Mr. Bowery.
Mr. Chairman, this is now, the next two motions will be companion motions for the Stop and Shop properties. And be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 111020-7.
Okay. I know your bandwidth isn't good, but it's probably a good idea to read the motion for the record. Did we lose his
Be it
bandwidth?
resolved that the town council hereby authorizes tax appeals by and between the town of Cheshire and Stop and Shop Supermarket Company LLC. The town council is authorized and directed to execute.
I think there's going to be a motion to shoot the vice chairman for making him read that. So I tell you what, I'm going to read that, Dave, because it was kind of worthless hearing it from you. Be it resolved, the town council hereby authorizes the execution of a tax appeal stipulated agreement by and between the town of Cheshire and Stop and Shop Supermarket LLC. Be it further resolved, the town attorney is authorized and directed to execute on behalf of the town said agreement in the form and upon the terms and condition as presented. That's read on behalf of Mr. Bowery, and that is a second by whom? Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Okay, discussion? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Jinks, I'm going to ask that you read the next one. That would be number 8, if that's in front of your face.
Sure.
Thank you. As a member of our esteemed budget committee.
I'm honored. Thank you. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 111020-8. Be it resolved that the town council hereby authorizes the execution of a tax appeal stipulated agreement by and between the town of Cheshire and Monowese Industrial Park, Inc. And be it further resolved that the town attorney is authorized and directed to execute on behalf of the town said agreement in the form and upon the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Jinks. Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Veliver. We have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, this gets us out of regular business and on to town manager report and communications. Sean, any report?
I do. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen so folks can read along. And I will try to move along pretty quickly here. All right. All right. Hopefully everyone can see the screen. All right. Up first, you'll see a report on the COVID pandemic. Obviously, earlier we had Maura give an overview, so I won't go into great detail, but as you can see, and this is the chart she was referencing earlier, we are over the last few weeks seeing a significant increase. And again, no surprise there. We have, as she said, been designated an orange level community with a case rate of 14.7 daily cases per 100,000. And based on the known cases we are seeing, we expect to be most likely classified as a red alert town this coming Thursday. The state of Connecticut has reverted to phase 2.1 reopening with reduced capacity for certain businesses and further restrictions as established by sector rules. DPH has also established a municipal response framework with recommended actions for towns and further restrictions based on individual town alert levels. I did include a chart here, which I have shared with the council before, but showing some of the general suggestions and requirements for orange and then potentially red alert case counts. So we will be, of course, updating everyone on Thursday when the new numbers come out. But again, we're continuing to stress to our residents and employees that it's imperative that we start to rethink some of our daily activities and consider shrinking social circles and avoiding groups and gatherings. Private gatherings continue to be the primary confirmed sources of spread. And as always, please remember to wear a mask, wash your hands, and keep your distance from non-family members. On some positive news, as we informed the council yesterday, we were notified of successful grant funding request to the Connecticut Small Town Economic Assistance Program, the STEEP grant, for $128,205 for renovation and replacement of sidewalks on Curve Hill Road and Highland Avenue. The town is planning matching funds of $121,750 to complete the project, and acceptance and appropriation of the grant award will be scheduled for the next council meeting. Also, positive news, congratulations to Jim Jascott and our entire finance team on being recognized for a GFOA award for excellence in financial reporting for the fiscal 19 CAFR, or annual audit, which we apply for every year. This is the 24th consecutive year the finance department has been so recognized. Just again, demonstrating continuing and consistent commitment to excellence in financial reporting. So congrats to Jim and his team. A few quick recreation department offerings. We are having a first annual Park and Rec turkey hunt, which will be next Thursday. Participants must pre-register for this free program, which will have participants following clues to 6 locations around Cheshire. Participants will be emailed the clues at the start of the event, or they can request a printed copy at the youth center. Clues will lead to 5 cardboard turkeys and 1 chicken that are set up at parks and landmarks around town. If you find a cutout, bring it to the youth center. We can trade in for a gift basket courtesy of Chick-fil-A of Wallingford. I know we've had over 85, maybe 90 people sign up for this, so it's apparently going to be a popular one. Skate park upgrades. As folks have probably noticed, last month, the skate park at Bartland Park was recently refurbished following warranty inspection requested by Director John Golick to ensure safety and structural integrity. In addition to some included warranty replacements, work was performed to enhance the condition of the ramps, upgrade writing, surface paint, and replace rusted railings with galvanized guardrails. The ice rink that we've had at Bartland for the last couple of years, unfortunately, due to the ongoing concerns with public gatherings during the pandemic, we will not be able to set up the ice rink at Bartland Park this year. In the future, we will be also looking for alternative locations as the lack of shade in the location used last year really, and coupled with the lack of sustained cold weather, meant the ice rink was really only usable for 2 weekends last winter, which was a disappointment for everyone. So we're hoping to find a good long-term solution there. And maybe somewhat related, the Bartland South and Chapman Property Master Plan. Later this evening, in fact, just a few hours ago, I received an updated document from our consultants, Weston and Sampson, that includes more clarity around phasing and project costs for the average taxpayer in response to the council's feedback at our last meeting. We are planning the first public engagement session to receive public feedback to be held during the week of November 30th to December 4th. Again, contingent on whether we end up having a council meeting one of those nights. So hopefully we'll be announcing a night very soon and encouraging folks to come out and give us their feedback on the proposal. Just a few very quick public works updates. Leaf collections begun for the season, which will go through December 11th. And a free mattress collection event is to be held this Saturday, November 14th from 9 to 1 at Town Hall. I know the council is aware of the all 3 referendum questions passed. You'll see the totals there for the police station, HVAC locker room, the road improvement program, and the road reconstruction questions. So good news there. And then I've listed some upcoming meetings, of which school modernization full committee and subcommittees have a number in the next couple of weeks. So with that, I will stop my share, and there we go. I'm back. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sean, for your report. Any questions, colleagues? Peter?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I think all of us, we got the memo about the award for the accounting department, and a lot of us sent some good-hearted ribbing to Jim. But I think it's worth noting that this is really an incredible accomplishment you guys continue to obtain. It certainly reflects not only on you and your department, but on the town as well. And just curious as to whether you're aware how many towns have achieved this 24 consecutive years. That's an amazing accomplishment.
Thank you.
Do you know by any chance how many have gotten it that long?
I'd want to double check. I want to say probably about a third of Connecticut towns are currently getting the award, but as to how many have had it that long, I can't imagine there's a large percentage of those.
I think we should plan a celebration for the 25th anniversary.
One more. Good to me.
Congratulations, Jim.
Thanks.
Great job, Jim.
Yep, very good, very good. Anything else for Sean? Staff, for that matter. Okay, then moving on to Chairman's of the Council report. Well, actually, we did also have the status reports for police and fire marshal. If everyone's had a chance to review them, if there's any comments or questions, raise them now or get them to those respective departments. Anyone have something done?
Yeah,
Mr. Walsh.
I want to make notice of there was two letters in our packet that were really nice letters about our police officers and dispatchers in this town, and I just want to make sure, especially one involving an accident with which Officer Ovesny was at on Cook Hill and Forest Lane, where she actually climbed into a vehicle and was comforting a woman who was stuck in the vehicle until they were extricated. And Chief Kazner sent a nice email to Chief Drive about it. And I just didn't want that to get overlooked here, because it shows the type of officers that we have in this town. And for her to risk her life to go into that vehicle and to calm somebody down and stay with her till she got to the hospital says something about how amazing the police officers are in our town. And I just wanted to make sure that was noted during a meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. That was a very appropriate comment. I appreciate that you took the time to make it. Indeed, a good department. We're blessed. We love our police. Okay, with that, we're going to move into, or on to, I should say, reports of the committee, reports of our standing committees on the council. Mr. Bowery?
Nothing in addition to what we've already done.
Okay, Mr. Walsh, solid waste, you had your day in the parade, I guess.
My sludge is done.
Okay. Ms. Nichols?
No, we will be discussing personnel things in the executive session.
Okay, I know I've left somebody out, so just speak up. You're next.
David Veliber with Ordinance. The Ordinance Committee met the other week. We are continuing to work on reviewing possibilities of amending the unsafe premises ordinance and a possible blight ordinance, as well as short-term rentals ordinance. And then we've also we started talking about and we'll be taking up the last referral, which had been the forgot what basically mobile vendors in town. So those three things, we talked about those at our last meeting, and we're moving forward with getting some ideas on those topics, and we'll be meeting again probably in the next few weeks to go forward with those.
Okay, and mine will be the final report. That's the planning committee. And basically, two of those things were briefly discussed tonight. We are working on a few things, and that committee will have to meet, I would suggest, the week after. We may have to do it next week. I'll have to speak to the committee, or if not that, the following week. Because we do have some stuff that we need to get going, particularly the legislative stuff for the Capitol, because it's recommended they get that as soon as possible because they go into heavy duty session on that in the first calendar year of their session. And they usually want this in by the latter part of December. Other than that, I guess we're going to move on to liaison reports.
No report from me. If you're asking me first, usually library met and they're ramped up with all their programs as best they can with COVID. We'll see what happens with the if anything is called back. So we have to reduce things, but they're doing very well and they're open pretty regular hours. I can't remember exactly, but they're doing well with social distancing and all of that. Arts Place is busy doing projects and doing online classes. So they both have board meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Mr. Walsh, anything?
No report.
Okay, Mr. Talbot,
No report.
Mr. Belliber.
No report.
Okay, Ms.
Oh,
Pavano.
No, we'll be discussing the teachers' contracts later, so.
Okay, Mr. Jenks.
No report.
Okay, Mr. Slocum, no report. I think that ends the
Oh,
reports.
no, David Barley, I don't, David, are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I don't know if you can hear me. If you want to do it, I texted it to David.
God, okay, I'll read it. As for reports, I would like to David would like to mention the Economic Development Commission coordinated with Bizzuto's and the Chamber of Commerce on the videos that Cheshire is open for business. I think Sean had sent those out to everybody, and those were really great videos. I talked to Jerry Sitko about that also at the opening and ribbon cutting for the Reread bookstore in the Watch Factory, which was a great place and a great event. But he mentioned that they're continuing. Sean, I think there were 7 or 8 videos or whatever there had been, and they're going to continue to make more and expand on those videos. So that was a great opportunity to showcase some of our businesses. And Sean, did you want to talk about that at all?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. It's
Okay.
again, it was a wonderful effort, really spearheaded by Jerry in partnership with the chamber. And again, Clem Kaczynskis from Bizzuto's Media. You may recall they did the partner with the police department in doing the lip sync video a few years back. And they just really, if you haven't seen the videos, they're very, very high quality. It's a wonderful thing they're doing for our fellow Cheshire businesses. So just a great effort all around. I hope people take a minute to watch them and share them and spread them as far as you can.
Great. Thank you. And I think they are great. And let's hope that everything continues to stay so that they can stay open and continue to do well. Also, the retirement board received the latest quarterly retirement account update that increased almost 7% last quarter. So that's good news as well.
Very
Tim?
good.
Tim,
Please, yes, Sylvia?
can I just make a comment based
Of
on
course.
Mr. Veliber's comments? I would like to thank the council for being supportive of the Reread bookstore. Mr. Jenks, Mr. Veliber, and I were fortunate enough to be at the ribbon cutting, and I commented at the time and continue to marvel at the enthusiasm of the young people who will be staffing that store. Their enthusiasm was just, it was wonderful. And I think we all agreed that it's a positive place. And I hope the people in Cheshire will take the time to go to Reread and work with the young people who are there, bringing an absolutely wonderful opportunity for us to have books to read while we're in quarantine or while we're in the house. But it's a wonderful opportunity for challenged individuals and a very welcome addition to town. So thanks to the council for approving the tax, the waiver of the
Permit fees.
permit
Right.
when they asked to be open. But go and see it. Reread books, great program.
Thank you for that, Sylvie. It's always great to cast a positive light on the positives in town, and we are blessed with many positives, but
We are.
that's nice to hear. Thank you. With that, do we have any appointments to boards and commissions tonight?
We
Mr.
do
Talbot,
not.
Ms.
Hopefully
Nichols?
we will next meeting, but we do not have them tonight.
Okay, thank you then.
Peter?
Peter, anything? Okay.
No, there'll be a lot after the first of the year, but nothing
Yep.
right now.
Okay, that's about the sum of it, I'm sure. Okay, number 13, Town Attorney Report and Communications. Anything, Mr. Smith?
No report, although there may be something in executive session.
Thank you, Attorney Smith. Okay, under council communications, any letters to the council that I might be unaware of that are to be shared with the
Mr.
public?
Vice Chair, I do have one that I'd like to read, and then I will forward to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Go ahead.
From Ronald and Judith Sliz, 570 Payne Drive. Counselors, we read with interest the intent of the council to review the problem of unsafe, blighted properties in Cheshire and potentially take action. The purpose of this letter is to support that initiative and provide some evidence for the need of an ordinance addressing unsafe, blighted properties. We believe we speak for most, if not all, Cheshire residents who wish to maintain value or add value to our properties. This effort is in keeping with our shared goal to maintain the quality of life in Cheshire and the high ratings the town has received regarding the recent rating by Money as one of the 50 best places to live. On Payne Drive, where we have lived for the last 40 plus years, most people take care of their homes and yards. However, in the last few years, the outsides of two properties have fallen into serious disrepair that suggests that the inside of the homes in question may also have fallen into disrepair, and thus the homes could be unsafe and the occupants at risk. One property is across from 10 Sutton Place. We see no number on the house or mailbox. The yard is totally overgrown. Evergreens that were half cut down several years ago are dead and create an eyesore. The other property is at 365 Payne Drive. This yard is also overgrown, and at the back and sides of the yard are piles of cut down trees we fear are a fire hazard for the surrounding homes. On May 1, 2020, we wrote to John Andrews, the fire marshal, to report our concerns about the debris encircling the yard. We sent his response to Peter Talbot. Below is a portion of our letter and his response. We actually have two properties on Payne Drive that could be described as blighted. John Andrews acknowledges the following regarding the property at 365 Payne and states, I highly believe it is blighted I highly believe it is a blighted piece of property. Unfortunately, the town council chose not to adopt the blight ordinance. Please address the need for an ordinance to prohibit blighted property that devalues our neighborhoods and could potentially cause further damage to persons or property. Thank you for your consideration of our request. Sincerely, Ronald and Judith Sliz.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Another voice for Mr. Veliber.
Yeah, thank
and
you
your
very
committee.
much.
Yep.
I appreciate that. Information. That's not an area in town that I normally would see. So I appreciate the the information on that, and we will see. Not only hopefully, unfortunately, maybe it's gotten worse since they filed that letter. Maybe that is something they can continue to look at under the unsafe premises ordinance, but obviously also the type of thing that we would want to address under some form of anti-blight ordinance as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Peter, and also the Sliz family. Thank you.
And Sean Kimball, if you could just address the question. Obviously, John Andrews has left the town for greener pastures, and that position now is currently held by whom?
So Mike Kozlowski, a deputy fire marshal, is serving as the acting fire marshal.
Okay.
We had
Okay.
Kazner and I had interviews last week for that position, and there should be a permanent appointment soon.
Okay, thank you for that update. I appreciate that. Anything else? I did have a comment if there's nothing else. I for one, and I think I probably speak for most of us in this room, I'm very appreciative of the voters of Cheshire this past Tuesday, or the last election a week ago today. I thought whether you were running for election or whether you had to vote in an election, this was obviously a very challenging year for anybody who had to sit in and take people's information before they could vote. I found the experience to be remarkably smoothly running. I thought the public was demonstrating the highest level of integrity amongst themselves, distancing, doing whatever one would have expected, but again, demonstrating what good citizens they are of Cheshire. And obviously, the turnout was extraordinary. The outcome, was what it was. But I think great credit goes to our fellow residents and certainly everyone associated with the process. And I just felt this council needed to thank all of them in particular under the weight of such a crazy year. And that was it from me. So I'm going to ask that we move on to an executive session, which was a foregone conclusion at the beginning of the meeting that that's what we were going to do. So I need a motion to go into executive session to include Mr. Zullo, Sean Kimball, Arnett Talbot, Chief Joytner, Chief Dreyfus here as well, I believe. Jim, will you be in this one? Jim
No,
Jescott?
Jim won't
Okay.
be, but Attorney Smith will be.
Attorney Smith. So I've mentioned everybody to make the motion a little smoother. So now I seek that motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Thank you, Mr. Jinks, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we'll simply give time for us to be safely in executive session.
And there will be no action after executive.